This video is going to be a 1 month follow-up to the Samsung Galaxy S7. I got this phone, a little over a month ago. Before the S7, I was using the S7 Edge and I had that for a couple weeks, and I actually exchanged that to try out the S7 to see how it would be to have a smaller version of the phone. The one thing that I love about the S7 is that with its more expensive brother, the S7 Edge, the S7 doesn't compromise in performance. Samsung made sure to keep the same internals in the S7 except with a smaller display. This is something that I wish other manufacturers would do. For example, you had the Nexus 6P and the Nexus 5X. The 6P was a bigger, more premium phone, while the 5X had a smaller display, but then had less going for it, like a weaker Snapdragon processor, less RAM, so on and so forth. The S7 doesn't really compromise here. A Snapdragon 820 processor with an Adreno 530 GPU, 4 gigs of RAM. Everything that the S7 Edge, the S7 has for the most part. The only difference is it has a smaller display. It doesn't have the Edge display, and it has a smaller battery, but then again, you're looking at a phone with a smaller display. And other than that, it's a cheaper phone. Everything else is pretty much identical. I've done a lot of tests already with the S7, so this is going to be like a rehash of my past videos. I'll probably be mentioning them. I'll probably put cards up on the top for people who want to check out the older videos and the older tests that I've made on the phone. But the first thing I want to talk about is the form factor and the build quality. I am a fan of smaller phones. I always have been. And I feel like the S7 is a great phone to hold in hand. When you compare it to a phone like the iPhone 6, both of the phones still look similar, very similar in size. So we're talking about a phone that has a bigger display, but still fits relatively well in the hand. And then if you compare the phone to something like a Nexus 6P, now the Nexus 6P is a 5.7-inch display, and you can see it pretty much swallows up the S7. The form factor on this phone is probably one of my favorite things about it, and the build quality is excellent. It's all metal and glass, it looks premium, it feels premium, the phone is just solidly built. The only thing that I wish Samsung did was not make the back glass. I would have preferred a metal back, because then you end up with a phone that's a fingerprint magnet. And it's not the end of the world, and I know most people put cases on it anyway, but for someone like me, I would have preferred like a matte metal back. The metal frame around the S7 looks and feels great, solidly built. The buttons are really tactile. I love the fact that the headphone jack is on the bottom and not on the top. And I mention that a lot in other phone reviews that I do. I just prefer the headphone jack at the bottom. Now the charging port is still using a micro USB. I would have really liked to see them go with USB Type-C for a phone in 2016 and a flagship phone that you're paying over $600 for. USB Type-C is something that I really wanted. I know that they talked about not doing it because of the Gear VR, but that's not a big deal for me. I don't really care about the Gear VR. I know some other people do. I know they wanted to make it compatible with Samsung. I just would have preferred a USB Type-C. You do have one mono bottom-facing speaker. And again, you're talking to someone that really prefers a phone that has a front-facing speaker. If they want to keep a physical home button at the bottom, it would have been nice to maybe at least put a speaker up on the top where the earpiece is. Now the phone incorporates a Super AMOLED display, and I will tell you right now that this is the best display that I've ever seen on a phone. You get really bright colors. Yes, they come from the factory a little saturated, but you can actually change some of those settings in the displays. In screen mode, you can pick AMOLED Cinema, AMOLED Photo, and Basic, which kind of mutes the colors a little bit. But I've gotten used to the way the screen is. I've gotten used to the way the display shows. The phone does get really bright. I have no problem seeing it in sunlight like I do with like my Nexus 6P. It's one of the brightest displays that I've ever used on a phone. As far as performance goes, I'm pretty happy with the performance. I'm able to run a number of apps and still have the other apps running in the background, no problem. I will say that when I use my LG G5, the LG G5 just seems a little more responsive than my Galaxy S7. And it's not by a lot. I mean, I'm just talking about when I'm running through apps or going from app to app. It just seems a little bit quicker on my G5. Kind of like how it seems when I use my Nexus 6P. It just seems like it's a lot faster. It could be due to the animations on the S7. Again, if you're not using multiple phones, it's not something you're probably even going to notice at all, but it's something that I do. Again, it's not the end of the world. It's not slow by any means. It's just I noticed that it's not as responsive. If you're looking for something more in-depth with performance, please take a look at my speed tests that I've done for the S7. I'll leave the cards at the top. All right, let's talk about the camera on this phone. First of all, I do have to mention that I love the fact that you have the physical home button that you press twice to open up the phone, open up the camera, I mean, as a shortcut. But I am very pleased with the quality of the camera itself. The camera focus is fast, the shutter is fast, everything works really well. The quality of the pictures are excellent as well. Now, when I've done camera tests with the S7, the G5, the Nexus 6P, the iPhone 6s Plus, I've noticed that on the S7, sometimes some of the pictures are a little over sharpened, but it's not that big a deal. The colors look a little more saturated, maybe more pleasing to the eye, maybe less realistic than my 6P, but they still come out great. Video recording on this phone though is the best that I've seen so far on any smartphone that I've owned. And it's the reason now that I carry my S7 wherever I go. Mainly because I like to take a lot of video, and the S7 is my go-to for a smartphone when it comes to video recording. OIS on it is excellent. And at this point, I think the S7 is better than the iPhone 6s Plus as far as video stabilization goes. But if you're looking for a phone and you're worried about camera quality, photo quality, video quality, the S7 is a great choice if you're looking for a top-notch camera on your phone. Again, I'll keep posting cards in this video so you can take a look at some of the video tests, some of the camera tests, some of the video stabilization tests, so on and so forth. Okay, let's talk about the battery on this phone. The battery on the S7 is excellent. Excellent. Probably one of the best phones that I've used as far as battery goes. When I had my S7 Edge, I was averaging about 6 and 6.5 hours of screen on time. Yes, it had a bigger battery, but on my S7 that has a 3000 milliamp hour battery, I am getting about 5 hours, 5.5 hours, sometimes a little more of screen on time, which is great. I can get through a full day of heavy use on my S7. Just for reference, on my 6P, I get maybe like 4.5 hours, sometimes a little more of screen on time. So with the S7, I'm getting about an hour more of screen on time without having to charge up. Despite it having a micro USB, it does have fast charging, and it takes me about an hour and 20 minutes to charge this phone from 0% to 100%. So the fast charging really helps out too when you need to get power in a pinch. That sounds really cheesy, power in a pinch, but it's true. You get a lot of juice on this phone in a quick amount of time. As far as the speaker on this phone, the speaker is okay. It's good for a flagship phone. It's good. On my G5, the G5 also has a bottom-facing speaker, but on the G5, the bottom-facing speaker is really, really good. Sounds a lot better than my S7 does. The S7 isn't as rich or full as the G5. On my Nexus 6P, it has 2 front-facing speakers, so it really can't compete in that area. Again, the bottom-facing speaker isn't bad by any means. I mean, you know, it'll do the job. Just don't expect to be using it in a louder environment, or like, you know, if you're outside and there's a lot of stuff going on, you're just not going to hear it as well. Again, like any phone that has a bottom-facing speaker, I wish it had a front-facing one, but it'll do the job. Other things on this phone that are worth mentioning is the fingerprint reader. Fingerprint reader is really fast, it's really accurate. No complaints there. It works just as fast as my 6s Plus, works as well as my Nexus 6P. The placement for the fingerprint reader is up here on the front. There's nothing on the back. Whether or not that makes a difference for you is subjective. Some people like it on the front, some people like it on the back. For me, I haven't decided. Part of me wishes you had it on the front and the back. Maybe one day. The phone does have an LED notification light. It is nice and bright. On my 6P, it's a little more faint, so that's nice to have. I also love the fact that with the Nano SIM, you can also put a micro SD card in here for expandable storage. I do have a 64 gig micro SD card that I put in here for all of my pictures, all of my videos, all of my media. Because I do take a lot of video, it comes in handy. It's nice to have an abundance of storage and not worry about running out of space because I only have 32 gigs of internal storage on my S7. As far as software goes, I'm still not impressed with Samsung's TouchWiz. I am first and foremost a Nexus user. I am used to stock Android. I enjoy the way stock Android works. But for the last week or so, I've ditched Nova Launcher on my S7 and started using just the stock TouchWiz interface, and I've gotten used to it. Normally, I keep all my apps in the app drawer, but it doesn't have the vertical scrolling. But what I did instead then was just leave my most used apps on home screens. I did get rid of Flipboard that it came with. The phone does come with its own share of bloatware, even from the carrier. Apps I don't use, I either disabled or uninstalled. You can't disable and uninstall all of them, but I did what I could. But even with the bloatware, it hasn't really affected my performance. I haven't noticed anything going on. I do have to mention that I do notice that my phone does warm up more so than my other phones. Probably right around this area. I'm assuming this is where the processor is at. Now, I don't know if it gets warmer than my G5 or my 6P or any of my other phones. I don't know if that's the case. I don't know if it's because it's glass instead of metal and metal just doesn't get as warm. But if you are doing heavier, intensive things, I mean, don't be surprised if it gets pretty warm to the touch. Now, my biggest complaint about this phone is where the back button and the recent apps button is placed. After having this phone for some time now, yeah, you get used to it. And if Samsung is the only phone that you've ever really used, yeah, you'll probably get used to it. And that's probably why they keep the app drawer here on the right side, so then you can hit the back button right here. They're close to each other. I still wish the apps button would be in the middle. I still prefer that the back button would be on the left side and the recent apps button would be on the right. But that's the way Samsung puts it. Don't know if they'll ever change it. That's probably one of their signature things. But for me, I don't care for it much. Now, with all that said, you're talking about $650 for this flagship phone. Now, what this phone offers you at that price is a phone that probably has the best in build quality, one of the best form factors. The display probably is better than any other phone that's out there. You have an excellent camera, probably one of the best video recording capabilities on any smartphone. The phone is dust and water resistant. It has a micro SD card for expandable storage. The battery is probably one of the best I've also used. So you're getting a lot of pluses with this phone, even at that price. Now, my gripes on this phone, like I've said before, is that the speaker is bottom facing instead of front facing. I would have preferred something more stock in terms of software, but you can always download a launcher like Google Now Launcher or Nova Launcher. I did notice though that when I use either of the two, it kind of lags a little bit. It's just not as responsive, so I'm just sticking with TouchWiz, and I just disabled and uninstalled the things I don't want. And I wish that the back button and recent app buttons were reversed, but other than that, those are really my only cons on this phone. But we're coming to the point now where the HTC 10 is just around the corner. If you are watching this video and the HTC 10 isn't out yet, I would hold off. I would hold off and wait a little bit and see how that phone fares with these two. If you're looking for something cheaper, the Nexus 6P is still a great deal, but again, if you're looking for something with like the best display, one of the best cameras, one of the best batteries on a phone, the S7 is the one to get.